Jumping right in. Poop Lady is at it again. Not that she ever stopped. Welcome back to We Talk. It's been a while as recovery has been slow and this bumble doesn't bounce like she used to. That aside, I'm doing well, as I hope all you are too. So, Jillian is in the midst of writing her third book for publication. Recently, she read, via video, her preface to said book. So, I thought we would take a look at what she has written so far. And, as per usual, I am not critiquing Jillian's grammar or any other technical aspects, but I'm only looking at the content. Although, I will say this, based solely on her Facebook content, her writing has not improved, in my opinion. When one uses a talk to text program, it's extremely important that one edits the text. Jillian doesn't appear to do that, at least concerning her Facebook postings. As for her books, she does what appears to be minimal editing. Whether she actually has a paid editor is questionable. Not to be a bitch, what passed as her second book, whoever was her editor should be fired. End of story.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I want to read you this preface that I just wrote. It took me a couple days and a couple weeks to really, but I want to read you my preface because I want you to see what I've written before I sent it to my editor, so you know it sound better. But I want you to see just a little bit of the improvement in the way I write in string the weaknesses are, and I'm doing everything I can to strengthen the weaknesses I have. But that also has to do with biochemistry, being organized in body, mind, and spirit, being able to separate ideas and then conjoin them together to find.
So, which is it, Jillian? A couple days or a couple weeks? It can't be both, and it's not a point you can be neutral about. This goes back to Jillian's idea that in order to argue a point, you must be able to argue it from both sides. But then she carries that point to mean that we should not choose sides in an argument. We should remain neutral at all times. She states,
And so I have my own journey of my own challenges that I love, and it's always a continuous process of improvement. And that's exactly what the Jilly Juice journey is continuous process for improvement. And that's just what life is.
now, I'm not going to fault Jillian for wanting to improve herself. I'm all for it. But to go so far as equating self betterment or self improvement, however you want to phrase it, with the process of biological evolution is just plain wrong. While Jillian does not outright state at this point her incorrect notion concerning evolution, I personally believe that this is what she's referring to. I realize this is just her preface, but I feel it's necessary to explore notions she has dangled before. If one were to follow Jillian's Facebook postings as well as her videos, you would understand what I am alluding to. I know I have commented numerous times as to Jillian's apparent lack of understanding in regards to evolution. She seems to think that evolution, occurs on an individual level. It does not. By definition, it's the change in a population's allele frequency over time. It relies on reproductive success. Jillian is barren for whatever reason. Bear in mind, I am being very simplistic for brevity's sake, but the best illustration or the best case in point is to consider what we're going through at this moment in regards to COVID 19. We are literally watching evolution in action. The only changes consuming JJ and its high salt content may possibly cause are mutations, for lack of a better word, leading to, let's say, gastric cancer, something that was highlighted in her own source in regards to kimchi's high salt content. See show notes for the link.
So, this is my preface. Welcome to the Jilly Juice Protocol, and I welcome you to my world. And I didn't say you. If you do not know, if you do not know who I am, wow. If you do not know who I am the inventor of the Jilly Juice Protocol. Jilly juice is nothing more than fermented cabbage, water, and white table salt on a body that will eventually be able to handle all of the food supply.
As I have stated numerous times concerning Jilly Juice, it's not a fermented drink. Period. End of story. There's no way around it. Just shut the fuck up, Jillian. She has no evidence to substantiate that claim. As to Jillian's use of white table salt, iodine tends to inhibit the beneficial bacteria in any type of cultured vegetable. Because of that, it is not recommended for ferments. You go to any canning site, any fermenting site, one of the first things you will see is types of salt to be used. The only consistent salt that is verboten is iodized salt, i.e., white table salt.
The core issues of this very publicized controversy stems from my beliefs in indefinite life.
Here's the thing. After Jillian's appearance on the Dr. Phil show, she changed a lot of her verbiage. One point she changed was stating that a person could live to 400 years old, to what we now hear as indefinite life. The issue is how Jillian uses the term or the phrase indefinitely. You see, from my point of view, it sounds like Jillian is still implying to be able to live to 400 years old. Indefinite implies not being precise. It implies being very vague. In other words, there are no exact limits. So, taking that into consideration, by my understanding, this is no different than what we already experience. We don't know how long we're going to live, and neither does Jillian. The average lifespan is approximately 79 years old. Jillian has no evidence to state otherwise. Granted, yes, we do have individuals aged 100 or older, but they make up less than 1% of the US population. So the so called controversy is not her claims per se, but the fact that Jillian has no evidence to support said claims. Just making a statement or asserting a statement does not make it so. One must utilize the scientific method to support said hypotheses. Something Jillian does not do, as she thinks that her Google outweighs all current scientific and medical research.
And also the power of fermentation, salt, sugar, conflicting with mainstream confirmation biases. Like any new thought process,
There is no such thing as confirmation bias in science. It's either true or not true. Science does not start with a conclusion. Science lets the data speak for itself. Quote, confirmation bias occurs from the direct influence of desire on beliefs. When people would like a certain idea or concept to be true, they end up believing it to be true. They are motivated by wishful thinking. This error leads to the individual to stop gathering information when the evidence gathered so far confirms the views or prejudices one would like to be true. Once we have formed a view, we embrace information that confirms that view while ignoring or rejecting information that casts doubt on it. Confirmation bias suggests that we don't perceive circumstances objectively. We pick out those bits of data that make us feel good because they confirm our prejudices. Thus, we may become prisoners of our assumptions. End quote.
it must be examined, cross examined, dissected, and debated until there is enough reasonable credibility. The information can be substantiated through reputable sources. And this is why I turn to PubMed, academic institutions that already have substantiated through different contexts that are actually related to everything.
Jillian's postings, her videos, and her books are rife with cherry-picked data. Very often, that data is removed from context. She does so to appear that this cherry-picked data supports her claim or claims. When you specifically read her sources in the proper context, a point I've shown many times on this blog, her own sources don't support the claims she is making. Now, let us ignore for the moment all of Jillian's claims, and let's return to the one point, the only point, in my opinion, that I and many other critics have harped upon since day one. Jillian's entire premise, her entire protocol, rests on this one point. In October 2019, I issued a challenge to Jillian and or her minions to 1. Find just one paper stating that the consumption of 47,344 milligrams of NaCl per day is safe. That's equivalent to the 1 gallon a day she initially prescribed. 2. Find one paper stating that the consumption of 11,833 milligrams or 1 quart of NaCl is safe. Again, that's per day. What I have found over the course of the past 3-4 years is that most of her minions drink anywhere from 2 cups to a liter per day. Now, there's 1 or 2 outliers that appear to drink a gallon a day, but I highly doubt it. Since publication of that challenge, I have yet to receive evidence of such from Jillian or her minions, and I know for a fact that Jillian or at least one of her minions has seen said challenge. Jillian cannot provide or has not, and there isn't any, trust me, I've looked, provided one source that supports her primary hypothesis. Her claiming maverick status for rejection by myself and other critics just does not cut it. And we'll go into that point a little bit further as she does bring it up. Jillian's material is not peer-reviewed. Copying unrelated materials, removing it from the original context, and then pasting said material into a new context is not research. For example, back in 2017, Jillian broached the topic of molten salt batteries. Believing this supports her notion that her megadose of salt is warranted because of this molten salt technology. As I stated in 2017, quote, the discovery centers around molten salt batteries, such as sodium sulfur or sodium nickel chloride, designs in which electrodes are kept at a high temperature to keep them in a molten state and allows charge to transfer between them. I shouldn't have to say it, but there is no relation to biochemical reactions or drinking megadoses of salt daily. Salt, or should I say sodium, is the only similarity, and last I checked, I was not a battery, and neither were you, end quote. Yes, salt, or NaCl, is an important part of our diet for the health of our bodies. Our body uses salt to balance fluids in the blood and maintain healthy blood pressure. It's also essential for nerve and muscle function. But we only require 250 milligrams per day, although the RDA is between 1,500 and 2,300 milligrams, not the 6,900 milligrams in just a 2-cup recipe as Jillian prescribes. As I have oft-stated, Jillian either did not read said article about molten salt batteries or she didn't understand it. Personally, I believe she cherry-picked information she felt supported her claim, placing it in the new context like I described above, and then call it a day. And just as a wee side note, the use of salt to replace lithium ion batteries was also in the news yet again this past month. So I had hoped to summarize Jillian's 13-minute video in one round. You would think that after all the years of following her antics, I would know her shorter videos are really harder to unpack than her longer ones. She has a tendency to gish gallop terribly. So consider this part 1, with part 2 on the way. It's written, I just have to record it, edit it, and make it pretty for y'all. So with that said, we will see you in a few days. Bye y'all.